And next we move to House Bill 5282 from Representative Diaz. Is Representative Diaz here to testify? No. Okay. So House Bill 5282 is an act relating to public officers and employees, and it would allow a classified employee to seek elected office provided that they resign their position upon being elected. I know this is an important bill to Representative Diaz. She's introduced it in years past and has been fighting for this issue for a long time. Signed up to testify in support of it are James Cenarini from AFSCME and Steve Brown from the ACLU. Do we have either one of them available to testify via telephone? Jim Cenarini? Okay. Whenever Mr. Cenarini is ready. Good afternoon, Mr. Cenarini. How are you?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. We're here discussing House Bill 5282 from Representative Diaz, and you've signed up in support, and we're wondering if you'd like to explain your support.
Sure. I'm ready to go.
The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, Representative Shanley. It's good to talk to you remotely. Congratulations on your chairmanship.
Thank you. Did we lose him?
Nope, I'm right here, and what I'm doing is I'm just turning down my volume so I don't create too much of an echo.
It's hard to tell because we don't have an image of you, so we don't know if you've cut out or what's happened.
Sure. So, Mr. Chairman, this bill, you'll remember, is a bill that has been in front of you several times, and Rhode Island Council 94, the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, strongly supports House Bill 5282, which would allow classified state employees to run for state elective office. Looking at our testimony, if you go to the second page and third page, it may make things more clear for new members of the committee. For state employees, there's three types of state employees. There's classified employees that are subject to the merit system law and have written job descriptions, such as plumbers, pipe fitters, electricians, secretaries. Those are classified employees and generally make up the largest contingent of state employees. There are two other types of state employees, the unclassified. The unclassified employees generally work for other branches of government or statutorily appointed officers. And then there are non-classified employees. Those types of employees generally work for the institutions of higher education and also include faculty members. So out of all of those three types of state employees, the only employee type that is prohibited from running for state office are classified state employees. And for many years, Council 94 has advocated that this is inherently unfair because the electrician, the plumber, the pipe fitter, the secretary, they all cannot run for state elective office. But if you're an unclassified or non-classified state employee, you can run for office and you can serve in the General Assembly. So specifically, I know that both Representative Rodney Driver, who is a University of Rhode Island professor, and Representative Michael Rice, also a university professor, served for several years with distinction in the House of Representatives. And dating even further back, a deputy sheriff by the name of LaMountain also served as a state representative. And what this gets to is the heart is that it is extremely unfair and in our minds prejudicial that a university professor or other types of deputy sheriff can run and hold state elective office, but the Capitol Police officers who guard all the different state buildings cannot, nor can the secretary or regular employee. One thing that I would point out is that this legislation, while it moved twice through the Senate, what's before you is a modified version. Representative Diaz, who had firsthand knowledge of this bill and has been a very passionate advocate, because Representative Diaz, prior to running, was a state employee working at the Rhode Island Community Living and Supports, at the state-run group homes for those with developmental disabilities. She was forced to even run the way that the statute is. She had to resign her state position. And so for years, the state had battled Representative Diaz as well as Senator Jabbour in our efforts to get the legislation passed. Several years ago, Peter Dennehy, who was a legal counsel of the State Department of Administration, said, well, is there any way we can come up with a compromise to stop fighting on this? And the legislation that is before you represents that compromise. The compromise is it would allow a classified employee to run for state elective office, but if they were to win, then they would have to resign their state employee position prior to serving. To give you a more current example of the inequity, I'm not sure if Representative Norrie was planning on speaking, but Representative Norrie was a Council 94 member who worked at the Division of Taxation, who, when it was found out that he had filed to run for elective office, was told that he had to rescind his candidacy or he would be terminated. Credit to Representative Norrie, he said, I will resign. He then ran and was elected in this sort of distinction. I would point out that one of the reasons why we view this as incredibly unequitable is that, to my knowledge, after you have made the wise decision to repeal the statutory bars that would bar convicted felons from running from office once they satisfy their debt to society, you repealed that several years ago, that classified state employees are the only type of employee now that is statutorily barred from even running for office. So we have asked for consideration of this bill for many years. We certainly would be willing to work if there was alternative language, and we hope at this point that finally, for once, we might be able to get it out of committee and have a good discussion on the floor. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions to the best of my ability.
Any questions for Mr. Cenarini? Anyone on Zoom? Okay, thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Chairman.
Next, we have Steve Brown signed up to testify. Is he available?
Yep, he's available.
Okay, we'll just wait a moment to get him on the phone. Steve, how are you? Evan Shanley here from the House Committee on State Government and Elections.
Hi, I'm fine. How are you, Chair?
We're doing great. We're discussing House Bill 5282 from Representative Diaz, and you are signed up in support.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair and members of the committee. The ACLU of Rhode Island does support this bill, as we have for a number of years. Those of you who have served on Judiciary Committee in the past have heard our testimony before. Mr. Cenarini, I think, gave a very good background on the bill. All that we can do is emphasize the point he is making about an issue of fairness. As things exist now, a professor at URI is free to run for and hold office. A cafeteria worker at URI is not. A deputy director, a political appointee at a large state agency is allowed to run and hold office, but a secretary working for that political appointee cannot. There really is no logical basis for this distinction. We think it is terribly unfair. We agree with the compromise that has been proposed. If we had our way, we would ask that a person be allowed to continue to hold their job and hold office, just as the unclassified and non-classified employees do. But we think that this compromise is, at the very least, a reasonable way of addressing the issue and giving these particular categories of employees their rights to run for office. So we hope the committee will give favorable consideration to it, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Brown? Okay, thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
No, hold on.
Representative Knight.
Representative Knight has a question. Steve, are you still with us?
We can get him back.
Yeah, I'll call.
Missed it.
We'll get him back, Jason.
No, don't even worry about it. It's fine.
Let's see if you can get him.
See if we can get him.
Can you guys hear me okay? I'm on a different microphone than last night.
Very well.
All right.
Steve, are you back?
I am.
Jason didn't want to let you get away. He had a question for you.
Okay, fine.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you, Rep?
I'm good. Can you just refresh my memory a little bit? Is the just two questions. I want to make sure I heard you right. Currently, you can have an unclassified employee run, win, and still work for the state. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Do you know what off the top of your head, and if you don't, that's okay. Do you know what the federal rule is about civil service and elected office? The two don't mix,
I
right?
don't. Yeah, I do not
Okay.
know the answer to that.
And then one last thing I wanted to ask you, because you've been involved in this conversation for many years, is, you and Jim Cenarini alluded to the compromise. Who's been against allowing our civil service workers to run for office? And I know that's the way it is in the law, but like compromise with who? Is there another side to this?
Well, I don't recall any actual testimony against the legislation in past years. Maybe some of the Judiciary Committee members from the past can remember if there has been. I do know that for many years the Department of Administration did oppose the bill. Mr. Cenarini referred to this compromise that was worked out with Mr. Dennehy, but that was many years ago. And I can only assume that the Department of Administration is back to opposing this legislation again, but I don't know for sure.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Brown? Okay. Thank you, Steve. I think you're finally done.
Thank you.
That concludes testimony on House Bill 5282.